I thought I knew every way a marriage could wound you after 44 years. But when Helen sat across from me at our breakfast table that Sunday morning and said, "Norman, the kids and I have been talking. We think it would be better if you didn't come to the lake house for Christmas this year," I felt something shatter inside me that I didn't know was still intact. I set down my coffee cup slowly, carefully, because my hands had started trembling. "What do you mean I shouldn't come?" She wouldn't look at me. She was staring at her hands, at the wedding ring I'd put on her finger in 1,981 inches, a small Ukrainian church in North Kildonan. "The kids think, we all think, it might be easier. You've been so negative lately." Everything becomes an argument. Negative. That word sat between us like a stone. Negative. How? "You know how, Norman." She finally met my eyes, and I saw something there I'd been seeing more and more over the past year. Exhaustion. Not physical exhaustion, but the kind that comes from tolerating something you've grown tired of tolerating. At Thanksgiving, you lectured Daniel for an hour about his investment portfolio. At Lisa's engagement party, you made that comment about her fiancé's career choices. The kids are exhausted from managing your moods. Daniel was our son, 41 years old, working in commercial real estate in Vancouver. Lisa was 38, our daughter, a physiotherapist in Toronto. Good kids. I thought we'd raise them right. I thought they loved me. "I was giving advice," I said. Daniel asked what I thought about his real estate syndication idea. "You called it reckless. You said he was going to lose everything." "It was reckless. He wanted to leverage his entire savings to buy into a development that hadn't even broken ground yet. I was being honest." Helen sighed. That deep, resigned sigh I'd been hearing more frequently. "That's exactly what I mean, Norman. You can't just support them. Everything has to be analyzed, criticized, corrected." I looked at the woman I'd loved since we were both students at the University of Manitoba. We'd built a life together in Winnipeg, raised 2 children, worked hard through prairie winters and economic downturns. I'd spent 38 years as an agricultural research scientist for the province, developing crop varieties and farming techniques that helped thousands of farmers across the prairies. I was good at my work. I took pride in it. "So after 44 years, I said slowly, "I'm being disinvited from Christmas. It's not permanent. Just this year. Give everyone some breathing room." She reached toward my hand, then pulled back. "Maybe you could spend it with your brother in Saskatoon." My brother Victor and I talked maybe 3 times a year, usually just on birthdays and Easter. "Sure," I said. "That sounds great." That night I lay awake while Helen slept beside me. The house was quiet, too quiet for a home that had once been filled with children's laughter and Ukrainian Christmas carols and the smell of Helen's pierogi baking. I thought about all the Christmases at the lake house in Gimli, the tradition we'd started when Daniel was 7, the frozen lake, the wood stove, Helen's kudia on Christmas Eve, the kids opening presents while snow piled against the windows, grandchildren running around in recent years, Daniel's twin girls, and Lisa's little boy. And now I was being removed from it like a piece of furniture that no longer matched the decor. The next morning, Helen had already left for her church volunteer group when I woke up. There was a note on the counter. "Didn't want to disturb you. Coffee is ready." I spent most of that day in my workshop in the garage. I'd been spending more time there over the past year. It was the only space in the house that still felt like mine. Helen had slowly transformed everything else, redecorated, reorganized, made it reflect her taste and her systems. But the garage workshop was still my territory, cluttered with my tools, my computers, my own way of doing things. I'd been working on something for the past 9 months, something the family knew nothing about. They probably wouldn't have cared even if I'd told them. To them, I was just old Norman, tinkering in the garage, avoiding reality, refusing to accept that his useful years were behind him. But this project was more real than anything I'd done in decades. It started with a conversation I'd had with a former colleague, Richard Flett, at a retirement dinner back in March. Richard had moved into consulting after leaving the provincial research station, working with agricultural technology startups across Western Canada. Over beers, he mentioned something that caught my attention. "Biggest problem in modern farming," he'd said, "isn't the equipment or the seeds or even the weather. It's data. Farmers are drowning in information from dozens of different sources: soil sensors, weather stations, satellite imagery, market prices, equipment diagnostics. None of it talks to each other. Half the decisions get made on gut instinct because there's no way to synthesize it all. I'd nodded. I knew this problem intimately. I'd spent decades watching farmers struggle with it. Someone needs to build an integration platform, Richard continued. Something that takes all that data and turns it into actionable recommendations. Real-time decision support could save the industry billions in waste and lost yields. He'd said it casually, already moving on to complain about his golf handicap. But I couldn't stop thinking about it, because I knew something Richard didn't know. Something almost nobody remembered. Back in the late 1990s, when I was leading a research team studying crop rotation optimization, I'd developed a decision support framework. Nothing sophisticated by today's standards, just a methodology for integrating multiple data sources into coherent recommendations for farmers. It had worked remarkably well in our pilot programs, but the technology to scale it didn't exist yet. The project got shelved when funding shifted to genetic research. The methodology was archived and forgotten, but I still had the core principles, the algorithms, the framework for how different types of agricultural data should interact. After that conversation with Richard, I started working again, really working, not just thinking or planning, but building. I taught myself Python. I studied machine learning and neural networks. I read everything I could find about modern agricultural technology, precision farming, the Internet of Things. Helen thought I was wasting time on the computer. Daniel made jokes when he visited about teaching old dogs new tricks. Lisa asked if I was playing those farming simulation games she'd heard about. But I was building something real, a platform that could take data from any agricultural source, any equipment manufacturer, any sensor type, any weather service, and synthesize it into clear, actionable recommendations for farmers. Predictive analytics for crop yields, pest outbreaks, optimal planting and harvesting times, market timing, equipment maintenance, all of it integrated. By November, I had a working prototype. It wasn't polished, but it functioned. I tested it against historical data from research projects I still had access to, and the results exceeded my expectations. The system could improve yield predictions by up to 45%, reduce input costs by 30%, and catch potential problems weeks before they became crises. I showed it to Richard over lunch one day in late November, just casually, like it was nothing special. Remember that conversation we had back in March? I've been tinkering with something. He stared at my laptop screen for almost 10 minutes without speaking. Then he looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen directed at me in years. Like he was seeing me, really seeing me, for the first time in a long time. "Norman," he said quietly, "do you understand what you've built here? A data integration platform for agricultural decision support." "No." He shook his head slowly. "This is a game changer. This is exactly what the industry has been waiting for. How long have you been working on this?" "About 9 months." He let out a long breath. 9 months, by yourself, in your garage. "It's not that complicated," I said. "The underlying principles are sound. I just needed to translate them into modern technology." Richard leaned back in his chair. "I know people, Norman. Investors, ag tech companies, venture capital firms that specialize in this sector. Can I show this to some of them?" I shrugged. What did I have to lose? My family already thought I was irrelevant. "Sure," I said. "Why not?" That was 4 weeks ago. Richard moved quickly. He connected me with a company called Prairie Horizon Technologies, based in Calgary. They specialized in agricultural innovation, and they were very interested. More than interested. We had video calls. They asked technical questions, market questions, implementation questions. I answered all of them. 41 years in this field meant I understood the market better than most people half my age. I knew the farmers, knew their problems, knew what they needed. They wanted to move forward. They wanted to invest. But more than that, they wanted to acquire the platform outright. They offered to purchase the technology, bring me on as chief scientific advisor, and fast-track development with a full team of engineers. The number they mentioned made me grip the edge of my desk. 7 figures for the initial acquisition, with performance bonuses that could push it significantly higher over 3 years. I didn't tell Helen. I didn't tell Daniel or Lisa. What would I say? "Hey, remember how you think I'm negative and out of touch? Well, I just built something that might transform agriculture across North America." They'd think I was having delusions. They'd probably want to have me evaluated. So, I kept quiet. I worked with the lawyers in Calgary, signed the papers, structured the deal. The announcement would go out on December 26th, Boxing Day. The irony was not lost on me. Christmas arrived like a verdict. Helen left for Gimli on December 23rd, her car packed with presents and food. She'd bought gifts for me to give the grandchildren, even though I wouldn't be there to watch them open them. Just in case you change your mind, she said. But we both knew I wouldn't. I wasn't going to show up uninvited to my own family Christmas. Daniel called on Christmas Eve. "Hey, Dad. Just wanted to say Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas, son. You doing okay? Mom said you decided to stay home." "Decided? Interesting word choice." "I'm fine. Enjoy the lake house." "Yeah." There was that awkward silence that had become so familiar between us. Maybe next year things will be different. Maybe. After we hung up, I sat in my living room with a glass of rye. The house was decorated because Helen had insisted. The tree, the lights, the nativity scene that had been her mother's. It all looked festive and empty, like a display in a furniture store. I wasn't angry. That surprised me. I'd expected to be furious, bitter, full of resentment. But mostly I felt something like peace. For the first time in months, nobody was sighing when I spoke. Nobody was exchanging looks when I offered an opinion. It was just me, my thoughts, and the quiet hum of the furnace keeping the prairie cold at bay. I spent Christmas Day in my workshop, refining some of the platform's user interface elements. The announcement would go out tomorrow, and I wanted everything to be perfect. I wanted them to see what I'd built and know that it was good work. Around noon, I made myself a plate of leftover pierogies that Helen had left in the freezer. Tradition still mattered, even if family didn't. At exactly 7 minutes past midnight, as Christmas became Boxing Day, my phone rang. "Daniel, Dad." His voice was strange, pitched higher than normal, shaking. "Dad, what the hell? What's wrong? Is everyone okay? Are the girls all right? Dad, your name is everywhere. I just got an alert on my phone. There's a story on the CBC, on CTV, on the Globe." He was speaking so fast the words were tumbling over each other. "It says Norman Victor Petrov, Winnipeg agricultural scientist, has sold an AI farming platform to Prairie Horizon Technologies for." "Dad, it says the initial deal is worth $6.2 million. I sat down on the edge of my workbench. "Oh," I said. That, Dad, what is this? Is this real?" "It's real. You sold something for $6.2 million initial acquisition. There's more if performance targets are met. Could be up to $12 million over 3 years." Silence on the line. Then, "I have to call you back." He hung up. Within 30 seconds, Lisa was calling. Then Helen. Then Daniel again. My phone didn't stop ringing for the next 2 hours. I let most of the calls go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to talk to them. Not yet. The next morning, I woke up to 53 text messages, 14 voicemails, and 9 emails. Most were from family. Some were from former colleagues who'd seen the news coverage. A couple were from journalists wanting interviews. Helen came home that afternoon. She came alone, which meant she'd left the lake house in the middle of our family Christmas. She walked through the front door without taking off her boots, something she'd never done in 44 years of marriage. "Norman." She just stood in the doorway of the living room, staring at me. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Tell you what? Don't do that. The platform, the deal, all of it. Why didn't I know?" I looked at her carefully. She was wearing the sweater I'd given her last Christmas, the blue one with the traditional Ukrainian embroidery. She'd thanked me for it politely and put it in her closet. I hadn't seen her wear it until now. "Would you have been interested?" I asked. She opened her mouth, then closed it. "That's what I thought. That's not fair, Norman, isn't it? When was the last time anyone in this family asked what I was working on? When was the last time anyone wanted my opinion about something other than to dismiss it?" She looked like I'd slapped her. "I didn't know. I thought you were just passing time." "Passing time. That's what you thought I was doing for 9 months. Passing time. You never said anything." "I said a lot of things, Helen. For years, I said things. I had ideas and opinions and observations. And everyone in this family made it very clear that those things weren't welcome anymore. So I stopped sharing them. I started keeping them to myself. And this is what I built in the silence you all wanted from me." Helen sat down heavily on the couch. She looked older than I'd ever seen her look. "The kids feel terrible. I'm sure they do. Daniel cried. Norman. He actually cried. He said he had no idea you were capable of something like this. Something stirred in my chest at that, but I pushed it down. He wouldn't have cared if he had known. 9 months ago, when I told him I was learning to code, he laughed. He asked if I was going to make an app for angry old men. He didn't mean it like that. Yes, he did. Lisa made jokes too. She told her fiancé that her father was going through a late-life crisis, playing with computers instead of accepting reality. Helen flinched. And you, I continued, you told your book club that I was impossible to live with, that you were counting the days until I found a hobby that would get me out of the house, Doris Savchuk told me. She thought I should know. She also thought it was cruel. Helen was crying now, not sobbing, just quiet tears tracking down her face. I'm sorry. For what specifically? For not believing in you. For thinking you had nothing left to contribute. For making you feel like you had to hide what you were doing because we'd all decided you were. She couldn't finish. Obsolete? I offered. Finished? Just an old Ukrainian man with old Ukrainian opinions that nobody wanted to hear anymore? She nodded, wiping her eyes. Yes, all of that. I was wrong. We were all wrong. We sat in silence for a long time. The furnace hummed. Outside, I could hear the wind pushing snow against the windows, the sound of a Winnipeg winter doing what it always did. What happens now? She finally asked. With us? With everything? I've been thinking about that all night. The deal officially closed yesterday. Prairie Horizon wants me to start consulting in January, helping their team develop the platform further. They're talking about pilot programs across Saskatchewan and Alberta, partnerships with equipment manufacturers, potential expansion into the American Midwest. That's not what I meant. I know. I looked at her. This woman I'd loved for 44 years, through good harvests and bad, through children and grandchildren, through all the ordinary days that make up a life. I think we need to talk, I said. Really talk. About how we got here. About whether there's anything left to save. Do you want to save it? That was the question. Did I want to go back to being the family member everyone tolerated but didn't respect? Did I want to spend whatever years I had left walking on eggshells, making myself smaller so everyone else could feel more comfortable? I don't know, I said honestly. I know I loved you for 44 years. I know we built a life together. But I don't know if I can go back to being invisible. I spent 9 months proving to myself that I still had something to offer. I'm not willing to go back to being nothing. We never wanted you to be nothing, Norman. Yes, you did. You all did. You wanted me to be quieter, less opinionated, more agreeable. You wanted me to just sit in the corner and nod and smile and stop having thoughts that didn't match what everyone else wanted to think. She didn't argue. She couldn't. We both knew it was true. Daniel and Lisa arrived 2 days later, together. They'd coordinated, obviously. Probably spent the drive from the lake house rehearsing what they were going to say. They stood in my living room looking uncomfortable, looking guilty, looking like children who'd been caught doing something they knew was wrong. Dad, Daniel started. We owe you an apology. Several apologies, Lisa added. A lifetime of apologies. I waited. Daniel continued, his voice unsteady. We've been treating you like you didn't matter anymore. Like everything you knew and everything you'd accomplished was just history. Old news. We were wrong. We were so wrong, Dad. Lisa stepped forward. What you built, Dad, it's incredible. I've been reading everything I can find about it online. Agricultural experts are saying it could revolutionize how farming works across North America. One analyst called it the most significant innovation in precision agriculture in 20 years. I don't care what analysts say, I told them. I don't care what experts say. What do you care about? Daniel asked. I care about being respected. Not because I made money, but because I'm your father. Because I've lived 68 years on this planet, and I've learned some things worth knowing. I care about being part of a family that values me for who I am, not for who they want me to be. They both nodded, chastened. I care about having conversations where my ideas aren't automatically dismissed because I'm old, or because I don't understand cryptocurrency, or because I actually remember what happened the last time someone tried some scheme that everyone thought was going to make them rich. The real estate syndication, Daniel said quietly. You were right about that too. The development fell through. The investors lost everything. I would have lost everything if I'd gone in. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? Lisa spoke again. Dad, can we start over? Not pretend none of this happened, but try to do better? Try to be the family we should have been? That depends, I said. Are you here because you respect me, or because I'm suddenly worth millions? Both, Daniel admitted. Then, seeing my expression, I know how that sounds. But yes, the money made us realize what idiots we'd been. It shouldn't have taken that. It should have been enough that you're our father and you deserved better. But if this is what it took to wake us up, then I'm grateful it happened, even though I'm ashamed it was necessary. I appreciated the honesty. At least it was something. Here's what I need, I said. I need time. I need space to figure out what I want from the rest of my life, which might be another 15 or 20 years if I'm lucky. I'm not making any promises about family dinners or lake houses, or pretending everything is fine when it isn't. That's fair, Lisa said. And if we're going to rebuild anything, I continued, it has to be real. Not just everyone being nice because they feel guilty, or because they think I'm going to write them out of my will. Daniel winced. We deserve that. Yes, I agreed. You do. They left after another hour of difficult conversation. Promises were made, intentions declared. But I'd lived long enough to know that intentions meant nothing without follow-through. The weeks that followed were strange. The story of my platform sale made national news. I got interview requests from farm publications, technology podcasts, business magazines. Someone from Dragon's Den reached out, wanting to know if I'd be interested in appearing as a guest investor for agricultural pitches. I declined most of them. I wasn't interested in being famous. I wasn't interested in being a symbol of anything. I just wanted to work. Prairie Horizon set me up with an office at their facility in Calgary, though I only went there once a month. Mostly I worked from Winnipeg, video conferencing with their development team, reviewing technical implementations, providing guidance based on decades of understanding how farmers actually work. They'd hired 8 engineers to build out the platform, bright young people who knew technology far better than I ever would. But they didn't know farming. They didn't know the soil or the seasons or the 1,000 small decisions that determined whether a family operation survived or failed. That knowledge was mine. That was what I could contribute. For the first time in years, I felt useful. Not just tolerated, but genuinely needed. People asked my opinion and actually listened to the answers. They took notes when I spoke. They implemented my suggestions. It was extraordinary. It was everything I'd forgotten I was capable of being. Helen and I started seeing a counselor in February. Her suggestion, which surprised me. We sat in Dr. MacLeod's office every Tuesday afternoon, trying to untangle 44 years of marriage, examining what had worked and what had broken. When did you start feeling invisible, Doctor? MacLeod asked me during one session. I thought about it. Gradually, maybe 8 or 9 years ago. The kids were fully grown, living their own lives. Helen got busier with her church work and her social activities. I retired, and suddenly I wasn't Norman Petroff, the research scientist, anymore. I was just Norman, the old man in the house who had too many opinions about things that weren't his business anymore. And how did that feel? Like being erased one conversation at a time. Like watching myself disappear. Helen was crying again. She'd been crying a lot in therapy. I didn't know, she said. I thought you were content. I thought you wanted to slow down. I did want to slow down. But slowing down isn't the same as stopping. It isn't the same as becoming invisible. In May, Daniel came to me with a business proposal. His commercial real estate experience, combined with my platform's agricultural data, could create something new. A service helping investors identify and evaluate farmland opportunities. Not speculation, but informed analysis based on real soil data, real productivity metrics, real market trends. My first instinct was to say no, to protect what I'd built, keep it separate from family complications. But then I remembered what I'd told him. Actions matter more than words. People deserve the chance to prove they've changed. Show me what you've got, I said. It was good work, really good. He'd done his research, identified market gaps, built realistic projections. It wasn't just an idea anymore. It was a plan. We spent 4 months developing it together. Working alongside my son, I rediscovered parts of him I'd forgotten existed. He was intelligent, strategic, genuinely talented at understanding market dynamics. And he listened, really listened, not just waiting for his turn to talk, not just looking for opportunities to dismiss what I was saying. In September, we presented the concept to Prairie Horizon. They were enthusiastic. They brought Daniel on as a consultant, and by November, he was leading their market analysis division for the platform's expansion into agricultural real estate intelligence. Lisa took a different path. She asked if she could help think through how the platform might benefit smaller family farms, operations that couldn't afford expensive technology, communities that were being left behind by agricultural consolidation. It wasn't about money for her. She genuinely cared about making sure the technology helped people who needed it, not just corporations that could pay premium prices. We created a foundation focused on technology access for small farms. Lisa helped develop the outreach strategy. Her experience in healthcare, in working with underserved populations, translated surprisingly well. Helen started asking questions about my work, real questions, curious questions, the kind of questions that assumed I might know something worth learning. She'd never be a programmer, never understand the technical details, but she learned enough to have informed conversations. More importantly, she started treating my work as real work, not just a hobby, not just an old man passing time. By the next Christmas, things were different. Not perfect, not magically repaired, but different in ways that mattered. We went to the lake house in Gimli as a family, all of us. Daniel brought a woman he'd been dating, a veterinarian from Calgary who specialized in agricultural animal health. Lisa brought her husband, Michael, whose career I'd once criticized, but who turned out to be a thoughtful, decent man who genuinely loved my daughter. The grandchildren ran around the frozen yard, throwing snowballs, their laughter carrying across the lake. On Christmas Eve, after we'd eaten and the children were in bed, Daniel asked me to step outside with him. We stood on the deck, overlooking the lake, our breath visible in the Manitoba cold, the northern lights flickering green on the horizon. "Dad," he said, "I need to tell you something." "All right." "Last Christmas, when Mom said you shouldn't come, I was relieved." He paused, staring at the lights. "I thought it would be easier without you here. Less tension, less arguments. I thought we'd have a better time." "I see." It was the worst Christmas of my life. He turned to look at me, and I could see tears on his face, freezing in the cold. "Not because you weren't there, because we'd made you not be there, because we'd chosen to exclude our own father from Christmas and told ourselves it was for the best." "Daniel, let me finish. The platform, the money, that's impressive. That changed my life professionally. I'm grateful for the opportunity you've given me, but it's not why I'm sorry." He wiped his face with his gloved hand. "I'm sorry because even if you'd never built that platform, even if you just stayed retired and tinkered in your garage and lived your life quietly, you still deserved better than what we gave you. You're my father. You raised me. You taught me how to think, how to work, how to be a man, and I repaid you by treating you like an inconvenience we had to manage." I pulled my son into a hug. He was 41 years old, almost as tall as me. But in that moment, he felt like the 7-year-old boy I used to carry on my shoulders through these same winter woods. "I forgive you," I said. "But more than that, I'm proud of you. For recognizing it, for having the courage to change. Are you happy, Dad? Now, with everything?" I thought about it. The platform was successful beyond anything I'd imagined. The money had changed our family's financial situation permanently. The recognition felt good after years of feeling invisible. But the real answer was simpler than any of that. "I'm not invisible anymore," I said. "People see me now. They listen when I talk. They respect what I know. After years of feeling like I was fading away, I'm real again. That's what makes me happy." Inside through the window, I could see Helen laughing with Lisa, the Christmas tree lights reflecting off their wine glasses. The grandchildren would wake up in a few hours, excited about presents, not knowing or caring about the complicated adult stories that had led to this moment. This wasn't a perfect family. We were still healing from wounds that went deep. Trust was still being rebuilt, brick by brick. But we were trying. We were doing the work. And that, I'd learned, was worth more than any acquisition deal or news headline. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat by the wood stove with my laptop. I was working on new ideas, extensions of the platform that could help predict and mitigate the effects of climate change on agriculture. Preliminary concepts, nothing concrete yet. I hadn't told anyone. But this time, the secrecy wasn't because I felt invisible. It was because I'd learned something valuable about myself over the past year. I didn't need external validation to know my work mattered. I didn't need anyone's permission to keep growing, keep learning, keep building. At 68, I was just getting started. My phone buzzed. A text from Richard Flett. Just saw the year-end numbers. Platform exceeded every projection. Agriculture publications are calling it one of the most important Canadian innovations of the decade. Not bad for an old man in his garage. I smiled and set the phone aside. The fire crackled. Snow fell outside the window. The aurora borealis danced across the sky like it had danced for my ancestors on the Ukrainian steppes. For the farmers who'd first broken this prairie soil. For everyone who'd ever looked up at the lights and believed that there was still magic in the world. I was still here, still working, still building, still proving that obsolete was a word that didn't apply to someone who refused to stop growing. The money would help my grandchildren. The platform would help farmers across North America. But the real gift was simpler than that. The real gift was knowing that the silence my family had wanted from me had turned into the space where I'd built something remarkable. The real gift was learning that respect shouldn't require proof of profit, but sometimes that's what it takes for people to open their eyes. The real gift was understanding that being labeled difficult is often just the price of refusing to stay silent, and that the people who call you difficult sometimes need to be taught the difference between difficult and valuable. I closed my laptop and looked around the lake house. My family was sleeping peacefully, dreaming whatever dreams people dream on Christmas night. We'd lost a year. We'd almost lost each other, but we'd found our way back, not because of the money, not because of the recognition, because someone finally decided to listen, and because I'd finally decided that my voice was worth hearing, whether anyone else agreed or not. That, I thought, as I headed to bed, was the lesson worth learning. Not just for me, but for anyone who'd ever been made to feel like their best years were behind them. For anyone who'd been told to be quiet, to stop having opinions, to accept that their time had passed. Your time passes when you decide it passes, not a moment before. The world will always have room for people who refuse to stop growing. And family will always have room for forgiveness, if everyone is willing to do the work. I fell asleep that night listening to the wind across the frozen lake, grateful for the journey that had brought me here, ready for whatever came next. Because at 68, I'd finally learned the most important lesson of all. The best chapters of your life are never the ones other people write for you. They're the ones you write for yourself.